Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast, your sanctuary with retreat experts, where we spill the tea on retreat success. Here we dive into crafting transformational guest experiences, talk about how to avoid pitfalls, and unlock marketing secrets. Whether you're a seasoned guru or a budding enthusiast, we've got the inside scoop for you. Join us as we learn how to flourish in this magical world of retreats. Welcome to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. This is Shannon, and I have an incredible guest on the show today that is going to talk about a topic that is so needed. Welcome, Laura Zavelson, to the show.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you so much for having me today.
I am super stoked to have you on because you're going to talk about a topic that, let's be honest, actually surprisingly, most retreat leaders don't want to talk about it, which is mind-boggling to me, or they just want to throw it out there and then just that's it. And that is on pricing our retreats so that we are profitable, so that we can have a sustainable business, both for ourselves, our family, but also for whom we serve. And so I'm so glad that we are going to talk about that today.
Absolutely.
Where do we start? How about all the things? I do want to bring up something just because we chit-chatted about it briefly before we hit the record button. One of the things that I talked to Laura about was I see this a lot. And I see it both because on the side that I have my venue, but also in the chat groups, all across the board when retreat leaders are talking, they struggle with pricing. And I'm noticing that the bulk of the people that are struggling are women. Laura, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen the same thing in my practice over the years, and also with, the students that I taught even way back in when I was a professor. I think that there's a lot of baggage that's associated with money, and that trickles into how we think about pricing. There's just a lot of emotions associated with it. And, there's imposter syndrome. There's how do we think about our own value? There is, do I deserve to be making this much? And these things run in the background, whether we articulate them or not. And they definitely influence when it comes down to write that price on your checkout page or write that price on your brochure. We stop. And sometimes we say, oh, wow, can I really charge that much? And we erase it. And we put in a different price. I had a branding agency. That was the second company I started was a branding agency. That work was done by proposal. So the person has a scope of work and you write down what you want to do and you say, I'm going to charge you this much for it. And I would go through and I'd piece out how many hours is this going to take? How many hours is it going to take my staff? And this is the number we really need to be charging for this. And I would look at that number. I was like, oh, they can't afford this. I can't really ask them to pay that. And I would erase that number and put in a different number. And this went on for a long time. And it took me a long time of being in business and a lot of sort of maturity and experience before I could say, you know what, I need to charge I'll say this a lot of times, probably in this podcast. You need to charge both so you can cover your expenses and also so you can pay yourself, so you can support yourself financially. And there's an enough number there, right? It doesn't have to be $1 million. It doesn't have to be what everybody, on social media is telling you it needs to be, right? You have your own enough number, but you have got to charge enough to not only cover your expenses, but pay yourself that enough number, or you're not going to be a going concern. You will not have a sustainable business. You might have a hobby, but that's not a business.
I couldn't agree more. And going to that enough number, it's going to vary by person, right? And let's just say for devil's advocate, you do want to do the $1 million thing and whatever, that's fine if that's your enough number. I also want to talk to the people who get stuck with, well, there should be no profit when it comes to these types of things. And I struggle with that greatly because every business, unless it's like what you said, it's a hobby, but even a hobby, if you're serving something, doing something, you've got to cover your costs. But every business has to have a profit. And if you're struggling with the profit, then give it away. You know what I mean? Like make a profit and then give it away in scholarships or give it away in donations. But don't devalue your services or what you're providing, or even to the guest's mind. Let me tell you something. If you've got all these amazing things listed on what this retreat's going to entail and it's priced too low, guests are going to look at that and go, something's not right. Why would it be priced this way when I look at another retreat and it's priced this way? And you'll actually lose business because you're pricing your retreat too low. People hear me on this. I promise you this is the case.
100%. People have a good BS radar. And they're going to think there's something fishy with what's going on. And the thing about retreats is, and this is different from people who are just offering an online course or do something that doesn't have any costs associated with it. If you are doing an in-person retreat, you likely have costs associated with this. Shannon, this isn't my area, so tell me if I'm wrong here, but you generally have a venue cost. There might be food costs. There might be other kinds of overhead that you have. And people sort of know that when they go in. And so if you're charging something that can't possibly be real, that is not going to help you on that trust thing. And, people buy things from people they know, like, and trust, right? So you've got, your pricing it actually fits into that trustability thing. And if you, as a retreat leader, you're trying to help people have a transformative experience, right? That's generally what retreats are about. They're coming to you and they are putting themselves in your hands, and they need to be able to trust you to do that. And the pricing is part of that trust. If you are an expert, if you are a leader, then you need to value yourself enough to charge enough to make this a financial win for you.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And if you've got too low of a price, not only does it devalue the trust, but there's no way in hell you are providing a quality experience, just like what you mentioned, the venue. If it's a cheap venue, that's something to be concerned about. The food, if it's cheap food, that's really something you need to be concerned about. What other extras are you providing? If any, if you're just providing a venue and space and free time to play and whatever, that's fine. But no matter what, if you're providing an in-person retreat, there are some hard costs that are associated with that, as well as your time in preparing for the retreat, executing the retreat, follow up to the retreat, and what kind of education and experience did it take you to get to that space that you could offer what you're offering, whether it is, stress reduction, whether it is somatic mindful movements, whatever it is that you're offering at your retreat. It could be a writing retreat. It could be an art retreat. It doesn't matter. There was experience, there was education, there was something involved in building you up to be an expert to host this retreat that also has value to it. And so I get really caught up when I see that. And we talked about this specifically with women, because let me tell you, Laura, at my venue, I have seen the bulk of the people who book retreats that are leaders are women, but the handful of men that are the retreat leaders that book here, can I just tell you, the pricing is drastically different.
Drastically. It's
drastically
unreal. So not to, I'll have a segue here, which is just part of the way I'm going to talk about pricing today helps take the emotional component out of it.
Love it.
So the one thing you do have to do is you do have to come up with that enough number. It doesn't work unless you have a revenue goal. So what I tell people is that if you were just starting out, okay, if you were brand new, if you've never done this before, at a minimum, you've got to break even. You've got to cover your business expenses. And then you need to pay yourself. You need to pay yourself enough to get to that enough number. So that is the starting point of all of this, is coming up with that revenue goal. And look, if you're only a retreat leader, if this is all you do, then your retreat not only has to cover its own expenses and pay you, it also has to cover all the expenses that go along with running your business. So the price of your Canva, your price of your Squarespace, the price of all of those platforms that we use to run our businesses. It's got to cover that too. So you're going to have to add that in when you're coming up with that expense number, right? And then what you pay yourself goes on top of that. So that's how we start. But I'm going to make this so simple, is that, and I'm going to use a really round number here. If you want to make $100,000 a year, I'm just picking a number because it's easy to divide by, and you want to do 5 retreats next year, then your revenue number needs to be $20,000 per retreat. If you want to make $100,000, okay, covering your expenses and paying yourself, you want to make $100,000 and you want to do 2 retreats next year, then you need to be making $50,000 per retreat. That's the number. Okay. No emotions associated with it. That's the number. So let's go back to, let's say your number is $20,000 per retreat. You have 20 people sign up. It's big enough for 20 people. It's $1,000 a person, period. That's your price. And so now we're not talking about, how much am I worth, or can they afford this or whatever. That's how much you need to charge in order to run a business.
Hey, retreat leaders. Are your retreats the hidden gems of the travel world just waiting to be discovered? Well, it's time to shine a spotlight on them. Introducing the ultimate guide you've been waiting for, our free guide, Top 11 Tips for Building an Email List for you, the retreat leaders. Imagine an email list packed with eager attendees, hanging on to your every word and ready to book at the click of a button. We share the blueprint to creating a list that sells. Don't miss out on the action. Learn how to connect deeply with your audience, boost your bookings, and create a buzz that fills every retreat. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, these 11 tips are your secret weapon to success. Visit retreatleaderlistbuilding.com now to grab your free copy and start building an email list that sells out your retreats.
Now that revenue number, is that their profit that they're taking home?
Mm-hmm.
So my question, okay, I guess that's where the way I price it, and then we can chit chat about it, is this is my value. This is my worth. And that's like my number one line item. It's like my value, my worth. This is what I'm going to get paid for doing this retreat, whatever that retreat is. And then underneath it, I have all the costs associated with it from then on out, right? So that to me then becomes my hard number. So I'm making this shit up, but let's say I want to make $10,000 for this retreat, okay? So I'm going to make $10,000 for this retreat. And then all of my additional hard costs come up with another, let's call it 40,000 for an even 50,000. Totally making this up because these numbers do not make sense whatsoever. I'm just trying to get to a round number. So now we've got $50,000 in hard costs, right? And so now I'm looking at this. The venue sleeps, let's say the venue sleeps 30 people, but my bare minimum to get it done would be, let's say 20. I don't know. So I would take $50,000 divided by 20, and then that would be my per head. And then anybody above 20, because it's just typically how I do it, that's bonus. And to me, not only is it bonus, but it's bonus plus scholarship. So I get into extra registration beyond that. Now I'm going to pay for somebody else to come. I get another extra registration. Great. Now I'm going to pay for somebody else to come. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're actually saying the exact same thing.
Okay. I thought so, but I was like, maybe I'm off.
Yeah, we're saying the exact same thing. So what you're doing is you're making it really concrete about the tricky part for anybody that does things in real life. So if you've got a workshop or if you've got a retreat, is that you have to factor in those hard costs first. You've got to do the math. You've got to do the research. You've got to get the quotes and find out how much this is going to cost. Okay, that is non-negotiable, right? And that's what I say about, like, you've got to cover your expenses, right? And then you've got to cover, again, if you only do retreats, if you don't have, weekly yoga classes on the side or something else, you've got to cover your annual business expenses, whatever you pay monthly just to keep the wheels turning, right? And then on top of that, you've got to cover whatever it is that you want to make as your annual salary, right? Whatever you want to pay yourself. And again, these are gross numbers, so you've got to figure in taxes or whatever. But to make this easier, we're saying the exact same thing. You have to figure out what you want to make. Then you add on those business expenses, and that's your hard number.
Yeah, I love this. I love it when you just do the math, right? Take all the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
The emotional part still might be there in the sense of what do you want to earn, right? I mean, okay, what do you want to earn? You do have to know what you want to earn. And I think that's where people get stuck. I see it all the time. They're posting in groups and they're asking questions, or I get the question like, what's a good amount for this? I don't know, because it depends on what you view your value, what your education is, what you're providing. Like, there's so many moving factors when it comes to a retreat, but there is a number somewhere in your heart, somewhere in your stomach, somewhere in your body that is, this would make me feel good. This would make me feel aligned if I made this much money at this retreat, right? And so however you get there, you can probably still break down the math. If we're being honest, Laura, if you're really one of those people, you can say, okay, well, my education cost me this, and this is how many hours I'm going to spend on this, and this is how, you know what I mean? Like, you probably still could break it down. But the bottom line is there's a number somewhere in your heart that's like, this would bring me joy and I would feel aligned if I made this, right?
And you would feel valued for your
Yes.
expertise and experience, right?
Yes.
And, I think a lot of times the easy places to get caught up, or kind of the easy sticking points, are, well, the people who I want to come to my retreat can't afford that. And again, I totally agree with you, Shannon, that you have to think in terms of, if you're going to give things away, you give them away intentionally. You give it away as a scholarship to a certain group of people. But at the end of the day, again, you got to cover your expenses and you got to pay yourself, or it's not a business. It's something else, but it's not a business. And it's not something that you can keep doing. And that's the thing, is that, if you're doing what you love and you're passionate about it, then the most important things is that you need to be able to keep doing it and keep helping people. So it actually aligns if you make enough to keep yourself in business.
It does. And I'm so glad you said that. But I just really hone in on people like, do make as much profit as possible. And then if you want to donate it, you can. The idea being that you provide value and that you are getting paid a value too, so that your energy is high and aligned during your retreat. Your guests feel that, everything feels good. And then at the end of it, look, if anybody wants to sit there and go, man, I made too much money, great, donate it. You know what I mean?
Well,
donate it to an organization that feels good, or a scholarship for your next retreat.
100%, or reinvest it in your business, hire someone to help you and help more people. You can decide the thing is, once you kind of get to that enough number, and I agree with you, it's different for everybody. And some people, that's going to be dictated by their financial needs. I mean, there's just a number, right? You need to support your family. And for some people, that's going to be dictated by what they wanted their business to do for them in the first place. Why did you start your business? Yes, to help people, but you may have also started it for flexibility. You may have started it because it allows you to do something you're passionate about. Again, there's a lot of different reasons that people get into business in addition to making money. But yes, we still all need to, that is like the definition of a business, is financial return. That is how it works. And if that's not the business that you want to be in, then you probably need to be structured a completely different way.
Agreed. Or go volunteer somewhere,
There you go.
Go volunteer at a retreat center, or go volunteer at a farm or a ranch
100%.
or someplace that you can still serve your audience and not get so tied up in the quote unquote money. Because if you're wanting to run a business, and I don't care, but if it's a business, it's got to have revenue. It's got to have profit in order to stay in business. And I really love that you brought up, look, if you're making a lot of money, that's great. Hire people, bless other families. There's a way to pay all of that forward. So you don't have to limit yourself and go, gosh, if I make that much money, no bullshit. If you make that much money, awesome. Build your team up. I love that so much. Offer more scholarships, donate to your favorite organizations. Literally, there's so much that you could do with it that is, does good still. Like, you continue to do good works.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, like, you're giving back to the economy. Like, in one of the first businesses that I had, we ended up we had about 20 employees at some point. And every single one of them, we tried to hire moms. We had job sharing. We had place for your kids to come after school. Like, we enabled people who wouldn't have otherwise probably been able to have a job. We created the jobs that we wanted, right? With lots of flexibility. We actually had yoga in the office. And this was before that was a thing. We were doing this a long time ago. So, there's a lot of ways and we were helping that many people, pay their mortgages and have money for their families that they otherwise wouldn't have had. So, again, if you grow your business, and again, it's 100% personal choice whether you want to stay a solopreneur or whether or not you want to grow. But if you want to grow your business, that is a great way to spread the money around.
Yeah, I love that.
Hey, it's Shannon here. I'm just popping in really quickly to ask a big favor. Would you pause the show and go review it for us? Please. Reviews really help us to be able to get more guests and more experts on the show to help you transform your retreats. So if you wouldn't mind pausing and leaving us a review, that would mean everything. And if you're not already subscribed, do that too.
You also mentioned that sometimes people will get caught up in, well, no one can afford this if I price it here. I'm also going to call bullshit on that, because there are people buying the most ridiculous, asinine, who knows what things for all kinds of exorbitant costs. And so if you have a wonderful transformative retreat and you are talking to your target audience that you have identified and you are providing true value for what you have listed, someone's going to buy it. They want that. I'm just a big believer that if you're marketing to your audience properly and you're serving your audience properly, you can put a price on there that they will buy from. And it can be a high price depending upon what you're offering.
Well,
and so, yeah.
And think about, I think that, this gets said a lot and it's more of a marketing topic than a pricing topic. But, if you think about the problem that you're solving or whatever it is that you're helping these people achieve, like what is the cost to them of not getting that fixed? What is the emotional and potentially monetary cost for them of not taking care of whatever this is? And so think about that in terms of, if you're really offering a big transformation, that can come with a big price tag because you're really helping people move through something that's going to cost them regardless.
Ooh, you just touched on like the thing. Like seriously, the retreat, let me say this really loud and proud. The retreat is not just the stuff. It's not just the location or the bed they're sleeping in. It's not just the meal that they did. It's not just the single workshop. It is the whole transformative experience that helps people change how they feel. And when that happens, it truly is priceless. If you are delivering on what you promised, it truly is priceless. And so I'm so glad that you said that. It's not like someone just booked a weekend at the Holiday Inn and they're just getting away. This is different, right? We're talking retreats. We're talking transformative experience with lots of little things that are integrated in there that provide people a way to break away from their everyday, learn new tools, readjust how they're functioning in the world, and feel better. Like that's ideally what most of them do. And they target different ways of doing that. And they target different areas of someone's life usually. But that is so true. This is not just a weekend at the Holiday Inn or even a weekend at the Ritz. That's not what this is. This is so much more than that.
No, you are solving a problem for somebody. Like if your retreat is doing what it's supposed to do, it is solving somebody's problem. That's why people go on retreats. That's why people buy stuff. I mean, come on. This is why people buy stuff. They buy stuff to solve problems. So if you can tee up your retreat as the solution for a problem that is really, I call them poison ivy problems, a problem that is so itchy that there's not an easy way to get rid of it. It's not, you're ready to call everybody that you know and ask for their home remedy for poison ivy because they cannot figure out how to get rid of this thing, right? If you can come up with that and you can approach that and address that in your retreat, oh my gosh, people will pay you to take care of that.
Amen. Hallelujah. I so love this conversation. You also mentioned details that people don't think about when it comes to hard costs. You mentioned things like their Canva subscription.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you there's so many people who are like, oh, shit, that is part of my business cost. You know what I mean? Or your Square services or your whatever PayPal percentages. I mean, there are so many hidden costs that people don't think about when they are putting together their pricing. And there is a way, like even if these numbers are annual or whatever, there's a way to break it down by the number of retreats that you are doing.
Oh, yeah. Like I'm a former professor, and so I'm generally used to having a whiteboard or slides. So podcasts can be a little challenging for me sometimes, but let me see if I can address this. So there's two kinds of costs, right? There's direct costs that are associated with your retreat. That is your food, lodging, venue, that, okay, and your time, right, that are directly associated with your retreat. And then there are these costs that are associated with your business as a whole. And in order to figure this out, you're going to have good business financial hygiene, which means that you can't commingle your funds. You can't just put your costs on your personal credit card in with all of your trips to the, I don't know what kind of grocery store, here at Safeway, like along with your trips to Safeway and along with your trips to, In-N-Out or whatever it is. You can't have your business expenses on that same card, download it all together and try to figure out whether or not your business is doing well. You have to keep your business finances separate. And I recommend a dedicated credit card. It does not have to be a business credit card. Just a dedicated second personal credit card where you can categorize and capture those expenses. Now, I'm not saying you should use this for business financing. Do not hear me say that you should use it as a business loan. What I am saying it is really because pretty much our businesses today run on these subscription products, Canva, our websites, our email providers, right? They all take credit cards for subscriptions. Have a card you only use for those, and then dump all of that information into some kind of bookkeeping software. You can use FreshBooks, you can use QuickBooks, there's a number of them, and they all do the same thing. But they will pull your expenses off of your credit card and stick them in a ledger so you can see how much it actually costs you to run your business every month, in addition to the retreat expenses. And I promise you, this number is going to be higher than you think it is.
Yes,
It's
it
kind
is.
of like when you go, maybe you look at your credit card statement at the end of the year and all of a sudden you realize you're like subscribing to Netflix and Hulu and Paramount and Disney. And oh my God, I didn't even remember it, signing up for HBO, right? Like you have all these subscriptions and you forget that you have half of them. It is the same in your business. So you got to keep tabs on that stuff. And pay yourself out of the business account and transfer that money back to your personal account. Don't just let that business income flow into your personal account and get messed up with your family's income and all of that. It is really hard to judge the health of your business unless you can see the money coming in and the money going out only for your business. Does that make sense, Shannon?
Yeah, it does. It's something that I talk to first-time retreat hosts even. And I know that this can get tricky because a first-time retreat host, if you've not done any other business, you typically haven't opened up an LLC or whatever it is for your state, region, country, whatever. However, to be quite frank with you, before you take any money in for business, you need to have that level of protection and separation. It's just legally required. And so I think in the US, you might get away with being able to file as self-employed, but you still have to separate the funds regardless.
Yeah, on your tax return, even if so depending on the state you're in, and I am not a lawyer, so I don't want to go do a deep dive on this. Depending on the state you're in, you can be self-employed without having an LLC. But I agree with you 100%, Shannon. As a retreat person, the LLC does give you some liability protection that you are going to want because you have people in a real space, period. But so, yeah, I think that's the answer there. But at the end of the day, even if you are a flow-through entity like an LLC, and all that means is the money from your business ends up on your personal return, you have to put how much money your business made and how much money your business spent on your personal return. You are going to need those numbers in April, no matter what you do. So you might as well make it easy for yourself by having a dedicated credit card and keeping it and having a separate account. And again, it can just be, just a second individual card. You probably do need, depending on the state you're in, a business bank account. But there's online business bank accounts that are super easy to open now. Like this is not nearly the headache that it was 10 years ago even.
Not even close. And you can even inform your company and do every single bit of it online. Like literally, 100%. I think you can do all of it online now.
Yes, I think I just did for this company that I have now. I believe I did all of it online. I don't think I ever talked to a lawyer or an accountant or anything.
Yeah, and if you're even at all a little bit computer savvy, you can actually do all of it for fairly inexpensive on your own. That's including if it's an LLC. Usually retreat hosts don't need to be S Corps or C Corps or anything like that. So if it's an LLC, getting your EIN number, getting a bank account, like getting all of that stuff you can do online and fairly easy on your own for just a few $100 filing fee here and there. And so there's really no reason why you can't do all this and keep it separate. And the other thing that I would recommend, and we are not tax accountants nor lawyers, but I will say when you are paying yourself from your business account to your personal account, do it through the right process and pay taxes on it then. Because what I see happens is they pay themselves like contractors. And then they come to the end of the year and they go, oh, holy shit balls.
Nasty surprise.
I've got to write a big old check to the government now, wherever you are. And so pay taxes every time you pay yourself. And if you happen to overpay a tiny bit, no problem. If you happen to underpay a tiny bit, no problem. But if you pay yourself as a contractor through the whole year, unless you were completely upside down, which that's just an unfortunate situation in general, and you definitely need Laura's help, then you're going to have to pay a big check to the government. And by the way, if you are upside down and you do that for too many years in a row, the government's going to go, you're not running a hobby. Something's going on here and we need to do some sort of auditing because this doesn't make sense. Nobody's going to run business negative for that long.
That's super important is they do limit the number of years that you can just say it was a total loss because they do end up classifying it as a hobby. So yeah, you do have to be, at some point, you're going to need to make some money.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey guys, I'm popping in to ask a quick question. Are you ready to elevate your marketing game and fill those retreat slots faster than ever? Of course you are. That's why you're here. And we've got the toolkit for you. Our top 5 marketing tools for retreat leaders guide. This isn't just a guide. It's your marketing guru wrapped up in one easy to follow package. Dive into the essentials of social media marketing, where we show you how to leverage those platforms to create a community buzzing with excitement for your retreats. Also, unleash the power of content marketing with strategies that educate and engage your potential guests. Plus, we'll dive into email marketing, SEO, and partnership opportunities that open new doors and bring in streams of attendees. So why wait to make your retreats the talk of the town? Download your free guide today by visiting retreatmarketingtools.com and start transforming your retreat dreams into reality.
So Laura, tell me how you can help retreat leaders. Let's say somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just overwhelmed. I've got, maybe they're juggling multiple jobs even because they're trying to do this on the side to build it up, or they're just trying to figure it all out. And some of the language we're speaking is going like, woo, not catching what we're throwing down, which is totally fine, by the way, especially if you're brand new to this. Can you help someone, and how?
I can. So my signature program is Business Breakthrough, and that's where I work with clients to design programs people want to buy and design businesses that support them financially and give them the flexibility that they want. That's what we're really focused on. Because what I find is that most people start marketing too early, and they expect marketing to do all the work of their business. And the thing is that marketing is just one piece of your business. The other parts of it are, the program that you sell. It is your business design, which is pricing, and what kind of a life do you want for running your business, right? Do you want flexibility? Do you want a no emergencies business? Do you want to work 4 days a week, right? So that's the business design. And then the last part of it is messaging, which is really how you convey the idea that you're an expert and that you can help people with this transformation. And you have to put all of those people together or your marketing won't work and you won't sell anything. I mean, that's just what I've learned. 25 years of experience, that's what I learned. So that program is super high touch and it's limited to only 30 people. So it's closed for 2024, but I will be letting some people in for 2025 at the 2024 price. So if your audience is interested in that, the best way to do it is to subscribe to my free newsletter, because that's where the offer shows up. And so is it possible to drop that in the show notes?
Yes, it will. It will definitely be in the show notes, but if you've got a website that they can go find you at too, please say that as well.
All right. It is www.laurazavelson.com, and I will spell that. Laura, Z as in zebra, A, V as in victory, ELSON.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. But it will be in the show notes too, if you're like, wait a minute, I didn't catch all that. So you can grab that in the show notes or just reply to me or touch base with us and we will get you connected with Laura. So Laura, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and for helping people hopefully see that. Couple things here. One, their value, it has a lot of worth and they should not shortchange themselves. And two, don't be surprised by your expenses and how you run your business. Make sure you take a hold of it and get ahead of it all. So thank you so very much.
Shannon, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Retreat Leaders Podcast. Learn more at www.theretreatranch.com. See you next time.